And welcome to Investing in the US. My name is Reed Goosens, and we're coming to you live from IIREC 2022, the Intelligent Investor Real Estate Conference here in Redondo Beach, California. And with me, I've got a good friend of mine, Stephen Pesavento, and he's coming to you. We're coming to you live. Obviously, you're going to hear this being pre-recorded. But here's the thing, he's never been on this podcast. He and I have been friends for multiple years now, and I'm really pumped to have him on the show.
This is the first time I've been on your show. It's crazy.
First time. Stephen, g'day mate, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Dude, I'm doing great, man. I'm excited. Live in person.
With that being said, because I can't refer anyone back to a previous episode, give us a spiel. Who are you? What do you do? Where you come from?
Yeah.
How do you get that good looking hair?
My name's Stephen Pesavento. I have a great show called the Investor Mindset Podcast, and I run a real estate private equity firm called VonFinch Capital, where we go out and find really great deals and raise all the capital with phenomenal LP partners. Been in the business since 2016, flipped over 200 houses, have raised tens of millions of dollars of equity, and have turned that over and over again successfully. Big into personal development. Excited to be actually talking today with you about the 5 success principles, lessons that I have actually learned from studying hundreds and hundreds of successful investors and entrepreneurs, and pulled them all down into a very simple format for us to be able to consume.
5 of them.
5.
Well, we're going to get into that. But before we do, I want to ask you, and I ask this of all my guests, how'd you rewind the clock and tell me how you made your first ever dollar as a kid?
The first ever dollar that I made as a kid, I can remember I started working when I was really young, probably 9, 10 years old. One of my stepdads had a framing company, and I get $3 an hour to go out and stack wood and to pull nails out of braces and really just do grunt work, run around, clean things up. And it was great because I felt like I was rich. I had some money, and money wasn't really prevalent as a kid. It was one of the big kind of pain points. But being able to have that and feel like I had some ownership, some control was really big. It's
really important to have a good grounding and hear where people come from when their relationship with money, because I think it's so important to how you go out and build success as an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
So with that, let's talk about the successful principles, because that was a good segue into your principles that you've developed through. Remind the listeners that you have interviewed how many people to get to these 5, the 5 commonalities that you see in the principles?
I've studied hundreds and hundreds of very successful investors, entrepreneurs, thought leaders. I've personally interviewed, done almost 300 podcast episodes on the Investor Mindset Show, and it's been phenomenal. And through that process, what I've realized is that there's a few of these principles that are common, that you see these things over and over again whenever you talk to successful people. And that's what really kind of brought me back to this idea of, if we can identify what those success principles are, if we can identify how successful people think, then we can actually start applying those within our own life. Okay. And of course, I run the Investor Mindset Podcast, and sometimes people hear the word mindset, but they're unclear about what that definition is. And so the definition of mindset is your thoughts and beliefs directly lead to the actions you take, and therefore the outcomes you experience. And what's amazing about that is, by changing those outcomes, or by changing those thoughts and beliefs, you can actually start to change the outcome of what actions you take, and therefore what is actually showing up within the world. So by understanding these 5 success principles, at the core, just applying any one individual principle is going to change your life. But when you can start applying all of these, you can start thinking and acting like some of the most successful people, and you'll start experiencing some of those same results as well.
So let's get into it. What's the first one? Because you're right, mindset is super important to everything. Changing the way you frame something is really, really important. So what's the first principle?
Well, framing, that's exactly it. So the most successful people, they see challenges as opportunities. And what does that mean? Well, that means that in life, there's things that are going to knock you down. There's things that are going to be unexpected. There's relationships that aren't going to work, partnerships, there's going to be businesses, and things are not always going to go the way that you want them to go. But the most successful people, they see those challenges as opportunities. And so what does that mean? Well, they look for profit in the problems, because they recognize that when there's a problem, that equals profit.
Yep.
And so how does that end up coming true in the world? Well, perfect example is when you're buying a large multifamily property like we both do. We look at those and we say to ourselves, well, there's an opportunity to raise rents, or there's an opportunity to improve this building, or there's an opportunity to reduce expenses or do a better job of managing. Any of these things are reasons that many people would say, I'm not interested. I don't want a house that's not all fixed up. I want everything to be done for me. But we go in and we recognize the same thing some of the most successful people have realized, that when you see those kind of problems, you then want to assess, well, how can I actually make this an opportunity for me and for those that I'm involved with to be able to grow and succeed?
Right. Talk the next one. What's the next success principle?
Well, there's so much to understanding this idea of challenges being actually opportunities. But when we go into the next success principle, is that the most successful people are highly focused on one specific thing. They have a very good understanding of what they are individually the best at, and they understand how to bring the right different skill sets together. So what you're not going to find extremely successful people do when they're at the beginning of their career is they're not going to be going in 12 or 14 different directions. Now, you might say, Stephen, I've definitely seen a lot of successful people. They talk about diversified, having diversification, having multiple streams of income. They might be running multiple businesses, but they didn't start running multiple businesses. They started succeeding in one business until they ended up having that type of momentum that could actually drive them forward. And then they were able to, once they hit a level of success, hire the right people, afford to be able to attract the right people to then go in multiple directions. So you've seen this?
I've seen it, but it's also very interesting because as an entrepreneur, you get so scatterbrained. I remember starting out and learning about real estate, and learning about wholesaling and fix and flipping and buying for cash flow and all commercial real estate, and you just don't know where to start. And so, what are some of the principles that I can take on, or the listeners can take on, to do something and be focused today? Because we're inherently gonna wanna learn everything and do everything and throw spaghetti against the wall to try and see what sticks.
Well, there's nothing wrong with going into it from this kind of beginner's mindset,
Yep.
Wanting to learn lots of things, but going in with intention, right? If you have a hypothesis of what you believe is going to happen or what you believe is going to be good for you, you want to go in, you actually want to experiment. So, try before you buy. Maybe you're going to go learn a little bit about this. You're going to learn a little bit about that. But once you commit that you're going to go down a path, you commit wholeheartedly down that path until you find success. You continue to iterate and maybe change along the way. But one of the biggest mistakes that we'll see people make, especially in the real estate space, is you'll go to a meetup, you'll go to an event. We're at a conference right now. And what I can always tell when someone is brand new or when somebody is probably not on a path towards success currently is when they tell me, I'm going to flip houses and I'm going to wholesale and I'm also going to do storage and I'm thinking about doing multifamily and I want to do this, I want to do that. Well, it's great to be excited about many different things, but frankly, the biggest mistake you can make is to try to focus in all those directions at once. Instead, if you focus in, you go down one path until you hit success, and then you get the resources necessary to be able to diversify and go do multiple different things.
And I can personally say that I'm at that stage now where I can go and hire the right people. But in the beginning, we can probably going off a little bit of a tangent, but you want to attract other people so you can be focused in your area, but you have other areas of the business that need attention, like capital raising, right? You're really good at it. I may be really good at operations, but you're not maybe good at operations. So you need to build the business. You need a little bit of yin and yang. So How does that lead into the third principle that we want to talk about?
Well, it's perfectly set up. I feel like you don't even know what I'm going to say, but it's right in alignment. And really what it comes down to is one of the biggest mistakes that both passive investors and active operators make. And they're unclear on what they want and why they want it. And so we've got a full 25-page little document that walks you through this entire process. And so I want to be able to share that with the audience. And if you guys want to grab a copy of that, you can grab these full 5 success principles of the investor mindset at investormindset.com/success. I'm sure you'll include that in the show notes for everybody. But one of the things that you want to think about is you want to ask yourself this question: what do I want and why do I want it? What do I want and why do I want it? And most people think, you hear the phraseology or the idea of let's start with why. great to know what your purpose is. I definitely believe it. I think it's a huge motivating factor, but it's even more important to know what you want, and you use why to clarify that what. So when we get clear on this question, when we ask ourselves, what do you want? And let's talk about passive investing as an example. If the answer is, I want to create more flexibility, I want to create more freedom, I want to have more fun, I want to be able to have 100% control over every decision that happens in that investment. Why do I want that? I want to feel secure. Well, one of those specific whats that you want does not align with passive investing. You do not have complete control over everything that happens with that asset. So if that was truly important to you, then you'd actually need to step back and decide, maybe I need to go the active route. However, by getting clear on this, you can come into it with eyes wide open about what is the right fit and what isn't. And a lot of people make the mistake because they're unclear about what they want, and then they start looking at a lot of investments and they get excited. They maybe pull the trigger on something that isn't truly in alignment. And I personally did this in my business. I started flipping houses. We bought over 200 houses. We built a very large house flipping portfolio. But at the end of the day, my what and why I was doing it was to prove that I could be a real estate operator, that I could make money today to be able to invest tomorrow for passive income. And through that process, I ended up building a business that was no longer in alignment with what I actually was going for, which is why we ended up shifting our direction, building a business around our ideal client. And it's only through that process of understanding what you want and why you want it. And the more often that you do it, if you do this every day, you're going to continue to readjust to be on the right path towards where you actually want to end up.
And I think going back to one of your earlier comments about focusing, being hyper-focused, it's okay to be hyper-focused. It's really important to be hyper-focused, but it's okay to pivot in the future.
Absolutely.
And it's okay as entrepreneurs. I remember hearing this, one of the guys who I had on the show, Dan Priestley, he talks a lot about riding the wave, right?
Yeah.
And when you're an entrepreneur, you need to be able to be nimble enough that things will happen in the business that you need to pivot. And you and I both personally experienced business challenges that you've gone from fix and flipping into something that you wanted to prove to yourself that you could operate, but it wasn't in alignment, and it probably caused you a lot of angst and anxiety and sleepless nights. But you got clear, and then you now have pivoted into your new venture. So, with that being said, what's number 4? Because I know we're trying to get down the list here. We only got 20 minutes, so we've gone through 1 to 3. But what's the 4th principle that people talk about, or what you've developed and you've seen and you've observed through all the different research you've done over the years?
Well, it's really key, right? They invest in assets. They invest in developing assets. They invest in cash flowing assets. They invest in assets that are going to protect their wealth. And so when you go through this process of actually investing in assets, an asset is something that is actually going to create value for you or is going to retain value. And so when you go through the process of investing in assets, that might be, a piece of cash flowing real estate. But another asset a lot of people fail to recognize is the asset of your brand.
Right.
You and I have both done a very good job. We're sitting in front of a sign that says the Reed Goosens brand. We've got the Investing in the US. I have the Investor Mindset podcast. I have VonFinch Capital. I have the Stephen Pesavento brand. And each of these are individual assets that allow me to be able to build relationships at scale, be able to build trust, and both attract people to work with me as well as to be able to create income. And so a podcast is a great asset. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that some of the most successful people invest in creating assets, but at the core, they are not just going out and spending money. They're asking themselves, well, how can I invest this money to then deliver a future return or future value in some type of way, shape, or form?
And I want to just clarify that we're talking about digital assets and personal branding because we are both operators. But as a passive investor, you also got to understand where you want to put your money to work in an asset, meaning a physical asset. If you are more inclined to go down the path of being an operator and building a brand and raising capital and doing all the rest of it, digital assets are fantastic, and we can do a whole podcast on that, which I'm sure you and I would both love to talk about. But it is important to talk about these principles and what people are investing in. And investing in assets for the long term is super important. Just understand that takeaway from principle number 4 is that there are other assets out there besides a piece of real estate. We happen to both use the business of real estate investing as our foundation, but we have other assets out there to support our core nucleus, which is to grow a portfolio.
And I would just say with that, one of the big reasons why I personally invest in real estate and run VonFinch Capital is so that we can create a very large, diversified portfolio for ourselves and allow others to invest alongside us.
Sure.
Right? So by being able to build some of the assets that I just shared, that I talked about, but you think about a great example like Richard Branson, Virgin. His name individually, Richard Branson, just by having that name attached to a company is an asset that directly allows him to be able to raise money, to be able to reach a lot more people. And so these are some of the reasons why you're going to choose some of the different partners that you're going to work with, is because of those assets that they bring to the table and the trust that ends up coming along with them.
Awesome.
And so that leads us into the fifth and final, which is...
Beat me to it. You would know this guy's his own podcast, right?
which is the importance of partnering with experts and hiring great mentors, coaches, and advisors, people that really support them in their business. So one of the big things to differentiate is what's the difference between a mentor versus a coach. A mentor is somebody who has already been down that path. It's the same path that you yourself want to go down. And what you're going to do is essentially learn from them word for word and follow in their footsteps. They're going to light the path so that you don't have any trip ups, you don't end up stepping in any potholes or falling down along the way. They have already done what you want to do, and you're going to go down that path and do it. A coach, on the other hand, doesn't necessarily have had to have done what you want to do. However, what they're the best at is helping you and others get the most out of yourself so that you can go to that next level. Now, what's a great example of that, right? One of the greatest examples is Michael Jordan. At any given time during his career, he had over 7 different coaches, from health to nutrition. And then, of course, we know about the head coach, Phil, but Phil was not the best player on the court. But he was the best at helping those individual players get the most out of them and then work together. And so that's really important, because a lot of people end up messing this up. They really need a coach when they're going after a mentor, or sometimes what they really need is the strategy of following in those footsteps, but then they go hire a coach that is really going to try to pull the most out of them. So they really work well together. And then finally, that last piece is all about the idea of partnering with experts. So this idea that you're going to go out and find people who you're going to align your interests with. And when you're talking about investing, this is really important. This is what we do at VonFinch. I know this is what you do, Reed, as well. But you can do this throughout pretty much every area of your life. You try to find other people who have similar values, similar vision, and that by working together, whether it's in a written partnership, whether it's a relationship with your spouse, whether it's other families that are in your neighborhood, or other businesses like we're discussing here, you find ways to have alignment of interest, which means at the end of the day, you guys are both driving towards the same thing. That when they win, you win. And this is one of the beautiful things that I love about real estate, is it actually really allows for that alignment. And it's one of the reasons why I built my entire business around real estate, because it really attracts people who are interested in personal growth, creating a better life, and then of course, going out and trying to do that together with other great people.
I love what this particular topic, and just to reiterate what Stephen just said, the difference between a mentor and a coach. I remember starting out hiring a mentor because I wanted to be this other person, right? Mm-hmm. Today in my business, I have mentors. You're a mentor of mine. I don't pay you money, but I have a coach who I pay. Yeah. Now she's not in the real estate space, but she helps me be the best I can be and get the most out of who I am as a person and my highest and best use. So understanding the difference between mentor and coach and where you are in your investing career is really, really important. And maybe when you're starting out, having a mentor is better than having a coach, because you want to be surround yourself with the people who you aspire to be. And then the partnering with experts, once you've got going, once you've got running, and you're up there and you're starting to do a few deals, starting to look at who do you want to align with to partner on deals, because this business is supposed to be fun, right? We're in real estate for a reason, to make money for ourselves, for our families, for our investors, but also we want to partner with people because that helps us grow and scale quickly. So with that being said, I've been writing down a ton of notes here. Could you take us back through the five principles again, and where we can go to find the exact formula on your website?
So you guys are going to want to grab these 5 success principles of some of the most successful investors. You can find that at investormindset.com/success. investormindset.com/success. And those 5 success principles, of course, are: they view challenges as opportunities, They are ultra focused on one specific niche until successful. They understand what they want and why they want it. They invest in assets over liabilities. And of course, they have a great support staff of mentors, coaches, and they partner with experts. So those are the 5 success principles. Again, you can find those at investormindset.com/success. And if you end up liking what we're talking about, I encourage you to shoot me a DM at steven.pesavento on Instagram. A lot of content coming out every single day right over there. It'd be great to interact with you and be able to support you on your journey.
Well, this guy's an absolute freaking legend. Love having him for the first time on the show. It's not going to be the last time we're going to have you on the show. But again, I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your day to tune in to continue growing your financial IQ. That's what we do every week here at Investing in the US. You can follow me again at Instagram as well on Reed Goosens. Or you can go to reedgoosens.com where will be all the show notes from summary of today's show notes up there. Remember to head to investingmindset.com/success to get your copy of Steven's incredible 5 success principles. And we're going to do it all again next week. So remember, be bold, be brave, and go give life a crack.